Hello, Jim here. We've had several good weeks in the market and have reached new highs. Do I think this is going to continue? I think it will. We will probably have some more turbulent times, but I would not be surprised if we kept reaching new highs. Now, like me, you may be trying to find some good companies that are reasonably priced, and it may seem like there's nothing out there. But I have two for you today that I believe are still fairly priced and have huge potential, maybe even doubling in the next couple of years. So stay tuned. I'm going to share with you both of these companies, why I like them, the type of trade I'm looking to make on them, and I'll actually go over a trade setup at the very end. So stay tuned. I think you're going to enjoy what I have for you today. Okay, the first company I want to talk about is Micron Technologies. They recently had earnings that were really good, and they're have recovered quite a bit. I believe in the last month they're up over 20%, maybe 22. If we go to 1 month, we can actually see. So they're up 23%. Do I think that can go higher? I do. Their earnings, like I said before, were really good. They have a 15 PE. If we look at their profitability A plus, very good return on equity, return on assets, producing a ton of cash, nearly, what is that, over 15 billion cash from operations. And then growth, they also have very good growth, A plus. I mean, look at some of these numbers. Revenue growth, 58%. EBITDA growth, over 161%. So it's quite surprising that they're actually not higher than they are. Valuation, they are showing that they're a bit highly valued, but I don't know that I necessarily agree. It looks like the PEG ratio is a bit high compared to the industry standard. Let's look at debt. They don't have much debt. Market cap of 136 billion. They have total debt of 16 billion and almost 10 billion in cash. So looking pretty good. Now, do they pay a dividend? They do pay a small dividend that they, I believe, just started recently paying it. We can look at dividend history and see. They've been paying it for a little longer than I thought, so it's just been very, very low. And the payout ratio is relatively small. I'm trying to see where that is. Payout ratio, yeah, only 7%. So it's just a tiny dividend. But here you can look at earnings. Their last earnings, they beat normalized actual by 31 cents, GAAP by 23 cents. So just in one quarter, they earned $1.91, and then revenue also went up over 448 billion or million, so almost a half a billion in revenue increase. Now, if we look at the earnings estimates, this is what's really surprising. So they're going from 782 for next year, which is a 15 PE, then they're going to 12, a little bit over $12. Then 1361, then they do fall back. So this may be one of those candidates for potentially 2 years, but maybe they could potentially double in the next 2 years, or at least be up 50%. So a stock I've been trading a lot recently, and it's worked out pretty well. We can also look at financials. Let's see if they're buying back shares. We'll come all the way down to the bottom. So not buying back shares, well, yeah, they've been increasing shares a little bit. So I'd rather see them buying back. It looks like they were 118, then they reduced a little bit, but then went back up. So they're a little bit all over the place with shares, but they haven't increased them dramatically, which is good. They have good ratings, so buy, strong buy. So quant is strong buy. That usually has to do with earnings revision. So they 27 upwards revision, 0 down. That's why their quant is one of the best in the industry. It's 4.97. So overall fundamentals look good. Options, they have a fair amount of options. If we look at the next up and coming week, they have, thousands of open interest, thousands of volume. Open interest actually hasn't been populated being the weekend, but that even looks good. I do like to come over here and look at the option chain. So I'm looking at 815. So we'll jump out to 815. This is Barchart's. either Seeking Alpha or Barcharts. I have premier memberships with both of them. I'm also an affiliate. If you want to try either one of them, details will be in the description. And here you can see I like to come down to the puts. I like to do around the 15 delta. So it'd be right around these two. So between 80 and 85. Am I looking at this correctly? Oh yeah, I'm looking at the wrong thing. It would be down here between 19 and 12. So you're talking 12 is between 108 and 115. Part of the reasons it's low is I believe they were up pretty big on Friday. But you do a 19 delta, you're talking 189 at 110, and you do a 100. So you're making over, 189. And we'll do the mid 194 minus 66. So you're talking $1.30 with buying the long put. We can actually see what that looks like. So we're looking at 110 and 100. This is August 15th. So if I do August 15th here, this is Schwab. I like using Schwab to show how it, just like their interface a little bit better. And so I like, for the videos, I like to use Schwab. So here we're going to go to 110. This is sell to open. If we do 110, and then we'll do 100 for the long. Yeah, so you can see between 121 and 136. So the bid is 121, the mid 128, and 136. And it's currently priced at 121. Now we can verify here. I can expand it and I can see the delta is 0.1957. It's going out 40 days. This is Sunday, so Monday it'd be 39 days. So I could even look at September. One thing I haven't looked at is the next earnings. Let's come back here and look at earnings. And next earnings is 9/24. So they had earnings fairly recently, 6/25. So we could even do September, or you could remove, set that back down. And then if you just wanted to do it as a cash secured put, you would make between 180.89 and 196. I typically do 2 contracts, so it'd bring in around 256. Some pretty good premium. I typically would start pretty close to this 136. So my first bid would probably be like 134, which would bring in 268. I would click on review order. And then I usually will post it and then go back and forth. If it doesn't get filled right away, then I might lower. So I might start with 134, then I would do 130, then 126, and so on and so on. And it works out really well. You can end up making some pretty good premium. I actually did a trade on them recently, and it was pretty similar to this. I believe I made right around 240, 250. So you could say, well, that's too risky. 110 is too close to their current price of 121, and they were a lot lower recently. I think they were at 1.52, sometime during the 52 weeks, closer to 61. So you could lower this. You could say, well, I'll try 105 and I'll try 95. And you're still bringing in between 65 and 80. The 105 is what a 12 delta is. So that's what we were just looking at. Open interest is good. Volume is good. So there's a good chance that this would be filled. And I've traded Micron quite a bit. It's worked out really well for me. I believe I own 200 shares. I have 1 or 2 additional trades going on right now. So I don't particularly see them as overpriced. I could very well see that they get up to 150 maybe by the end of the year, or potentially even 200. So where I've run into trouble with them is more selling the covered call. So once they get assigned to me, and part of my goal being an investor is for them to be assigned to me, I end up selling a covered call. I always sell a covered call above the cost basis and then a little bit of profit. But even the shares, I believe they were assigned to me at 85, and I've been rolling them up. But selling the covered call too soon can kind of clip your wings. It can keep you from making really good profits. So this is the first company that I like. Share a comment what you think about it. Are you investing in Micron? Next, we'll jump to a different company, another chip maker, but one I think that even has more potential. So stay tuned. Let's jump into the next section. Okay, now my other favorite company at this time is AMD. I think the potential with AMD is quite large. I could see this company, and I've talked about it before. I originally thought, well, 125 by the end of the year, then I switched it to 150. I could see this company potentially being a $200 company, maybe before the end of the year. And I'll show you why. Profitability looks fairly good. It's got an A. Not quite as good as Micron's, but right up there. The margins could be a little bit better. Their asset turnover could be a little bit better, but they also have good cash from operations. Growth is really good, 21% for revenue growth, 53% for EBITDA and regular income growth. Valuation, even though this is a D plus, I really see them as not being overvalued. And if we look at their capital structure, $223 billion company, total debt $4.7 billion, and they have cash of $7.3 billion. So very little debt and quite a bit of cash. They don't currently pay a dividend. And then earnings, they had really good earnings back in May. They beat both normalized actual, GAAP actual, as well as revenue. Revenue went up over $318 million, which was quite good. One reason I really like them, if you look at their earnings estimate, they're going from 387 to 570 to 699 to 844 to 996. So literally over the next 5 years, they're going to potentially almost triple, which is unbelievable. So, and these projections may even be low. Their new 350 chip has come out. I believe it's hit the market now, and the orders look good. They're actually adjusting some of their projections. Their 400 chip, is an AI-based chip, which will compete with NVIDIA. They won't really take, well, they won't take any market from NVIDIA, but they'll kind of answer a big need in the market, especially when a lot of the big boys will be able to buy the AMD chips at a much reasonable price. And they're projecting to sell quite a few of them, tens of billions, as the CEO likes to say. Now, if you didn't know this, the CEO of AMD is the cousin of the CEO of NVIDIA. And I wouldn't be surprised if they talk a lot. It's pretty interesting that their markets are somewhat different, but they also manage things. They're very laid back. They underpromise and always overachieve. And where AMD was a couple of years ago compared to what it was now, I've always been an Intel person. And now recently I've switched to AMD. I've got an AMD computer that I'm working on right here. It's one of their AI computers. And some of their other products that they're coming out with, they're going to really rebound significantly. And once they gain momentum, because right now it's been increasing. I think it was a C minus, but I could see them shooting up. I could see them being 150 by the end of the year, maybe even 200 by the end of the year, and doubling or tripling. Some people think they could potentially be almost like the future NVIDIA, that this company, if you own them over 5-10 years, could grow, 800 to 1,000% or some crazy amount. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that, but I do see a lot of really promising things with them. Now if you look in the last month, they're up quite a bit, almost 20%. For the 1 year, they're still down. They're still down 15%. If you look 10 years, you can see how they typically, hit, and then I think they're going to hit new highs. I think they're going to be up in the 225, 250, probably within 6 months, maybe more like a year. So there's some great opportunity. I'd ignore this PE. It doesn't really make sense, because they're, like I showed over here. I've noticed some kind of odd data with Seeking Alpha. Now, if you look at their options, they also, like Micron, they have good volume and typically good open interest. This is a weekly. So if we go out to, again, the August 15th, and we look at the opportunities that are available there, it's quite a bit, huge amounts of volume. And you can, one thing I really like to do is to sell vertical put credit spreads. I like to go out, 40, 60 days and get like a 10% discount on the stock. So if a stock is, 150, I want to get like $15 off it. And it's usually right around between a 15 and 20 delta. So they have plenty of options volume. If we come over to bar charts and we look with them, again, we go out to 815 and we go and look for a 15 delta. Let's see. And yeah, here's a 19 and 12. Make sure I'm not on Micron. No, I'm still on Micron. I thought I switched to AMD. Let's switch to AMD. Those numbers looked too similar. So they remembered 815. So let's come down here. So here's pretty close to a 15 delta. It's a 16.59. So you're bringing in anywhere from 209 to 213, which is good. I like to go out $10 and then buy the long put. So between 86 and 88. So just like Micron, you can make between 130, 140 on each contract. Now, if you just wanted to do it as a cash secured put, you could make around 200, 212. If you wanted to do less risk, you could jump down to 115, 105. And even with that, you're earning like $80, $90 on each contract. Now, a lot of people will question why, they don't like vertical put credit spreads. I look to own a lot of these companies. I own 200 shares of AMD, and I'll share that trade that I did recently on them. I actually, when the AMD was assigned to me, I sold what I'm calling a covered call spread, and I'll share with you now I've recently rolled it into a covered call. And when you buy a long put or a long call and the stock goes in that direction, meaning it drops for a put, that long put becomes worth a lot more. So if your goal is assignment and your goal is to own them, and I definitely want to own them, I actually want to own more like 400 or 600 shares. It works out really well. And the flip side is if you buy a long call and it goes up quite a bit, then just like the long put, when a stock drops, when it goes up considerably, it doesn't clip your wings. It only clips your wings to the point of what you miss out on the spread. So if the spread's a $10 spread, but you bring in $100, it's really more like $900. So you'd only miss out on $900, which may seem like a lot, but if you have a stock, like if you think about NVIDIA, I think NVIDIA over the last 10 years, or maybe not even 10 years, I know the shares I own of NVIDIA have like a 500% return, so only missing, 2, 3, 4% of the total value when it grows 500%. It's a small fraction of what you would have missed out if you just sold covered call. I typically, at least in my smaller accounts, beat the S&P. And if it wasn't for some of the covered calls that clip my wings, I probably would add another 5, 6% on a yearly basis. So something to think about. And that's why I like buying these long calls and long puts. Let's look at it in Schwab. So we'll come over here. Here's AMD. I want to do it as a vertical put. And over here, I was looking at, what was it? The 16 deltas right at 120. So if I come back and I do sell to open, I want to go to 815. And then I will go to, I think it was was it 120? Yeah, 120. And then this would be 110. So, and here again, you can see between 121 and 126, the mid being 123, I would probably, the last trade I did with AMD, I did it right at the ask. So I did it at 126 and it got assigned to me, or not assigned to me, it got filled. I typically like to do 2 contracts. So I would make 246. And if they got assigned to me again, the price would drop. And as the price dropped, this 110 would become worth more and more. So I believe the original trade I did that did get assigned to me, it started out at like right around this, like $60 to $80. And we'll look here in a minute when I sold this long call, or in the case when these were assigned to me, when I sold the long put, they were worth so much more. So it gave me so many more choices, and it gave me the ability to own the stock for cheaper. So I look at myself as more of an investor and then a trader. Now I have both in my membership. I have people who are pure traders that don't want to own the stock, and they also, some of them are doing better than I am. But I'm one of those. I really like owning the stock. I really like researching stocks and ETFs, but more so stocks, because I like to buy their products. I like to try their services. I like to really get involved. So that's part of the reason why I really like AMD. I like what they're doing and where they're headed. So at this point, I'll show you what the previous trade looked like. Now, this is my Patreon, what I typically do, and I do this for all levels. I make a trade, then I post it to my members, usually minutes after I make the trade. I share details on why I did the trade. For this one, I closed the vertical call credit spread with a 120 and 130. At that point, my cost basis was right around 118, 117, but AMD had shot up so much. So then the 130, I believe it was higher than the 130, but I was able to sell the 130 and then also sell, if I recall, at 150. And so if I didn't have this 130 long call, I could not have rolled it all the way, the 120 covered call, out to 150. And it's currently 137, and I could roll it up and away again. I might actually buy another long call. I can also do that. One thing I forget to mention to people, you can turn a cash secured put into a vertical put credit spread by buying the long put later. I've had instances where I've done that. I've also had instances where I've converted a spread to a vertical put credit spread to a cash secured put, and vice versa, even with calls. So you don't necessarily have to buy every leg at the same time. So, and this is what I talked about. AMD is way ahead of schedule. I first thought it would reach 125 by the end of the year. Next, I thought of 150 by the end of the year. Chance exists of 170 or possibly 175 or possibly 200 before the end of the year. However, if you remove recency bias and look at how it has performed in the past, I think we might hit 150 and then get a pullback. And that's what's happened. We came really close to 150 later in the year. And there's a lot of outstanding issues related to Trump's big bill, which got passed on Friday, and the tariffs. And I think once the tariffs are ironed out, the market may take off big time. And also the Fed has once again thrown cold water on the rate hike. So like I said before, I share this information. I post it. I have it in specific collections. I then copy it to my Discord right after I post it to Patreon. And I have a lot of stuff in my Discord on not just trading options, but taxes, trading as a business, learning special tools. I have one member who's actually working on a tool that will probably release to the membership once he's ready, once he has it. He wants to release it now or share it with 5 members, but I'm like, no, let's hold off until you have it in a more safe and secure place before you start sharing it with members. It's a tool that I could also build, but the fact that he wants to do it, and I'm so busy right now. So this is what I wanted to share with you guys. What do you think? Are you trading in Micron or AMD? Is there a stock you think might perform better than one of these two? What I like about both of them, if you look at forward PE for AMD, it's right around 24, 25. And then it's even lower for Micron. If you compare that to a Palantir, which is like 300, or some of the others that are 70, 80, both of these stocks, neither one is way overpriced. So as always, thanks for taking the time to watch, and I hope you have a wonderful end to your 4th of July weekend. Have a wonderful evening.